Welcome! Today we will talk about the Sitecore Experience Accelerator. This product was released during the Sitecore Expo in 2016, and now more than a year later we're already at version 1.6. In this video we will talk about how the tool has been evolving and what the new features are in the latest version. So are you ready? Let's start!
Let me first explain what the Sitecore Experience Accelerator actually is, and how it can help companies to build websites in a shorter amount of time. SXA is a toolkit that is fully integrated into the Sitecore editing functionality. It allows different teams to start in parallel without waiting on others to complete their work first, therefore reducing the time to market. IT and implementation partners can be relieved of many building responsibilities and can focus on the requirements that typically get moved into phase 2. SXA offers a drag and drop toolbox with more than 70 ready-to-use components that allow you to create wireframes directly within Sitecore. Once the UX is finished, the design and content entry phases can directly start. You can export the wireframes of a site and send it to a creative agency to work with. The exported file is a zip that contains the site pages, the site assets, and the site theme. The agency can edit the exported site using their favorite tools and platform, and when they've finished, you can import the improved design back into the website. You can also modify themes and other site content without having to import the files back into the site. Creative Exchange Live works with gulp tasks that enable you to make changes to the themes and other content and synchronize to the Sitecore environment directly. SXA uses a fully responsive grid layout to help you create responsive, mobile-first designs and ensure cross-browser support. You can choose to use one of the built-in grid systems like the 960 grid system, Serve Foundation, or the more popular Bootstrap framework. If none of those suit you, then you can also use your own grid system. The SXA content architecture includes tenants and sites. SXA supports multi-tenancy, which means that you can run multiple sites on a single instance of Sitecore. Each tenant can include multiple related sites, for example to support multiple brands for a single company, or multiple languages or locations for a single brand. Within your tenant, you can share styling, data sources, page and partial designs, and rendering variants to help you create your sites quicker. In addition, it is also possible to share content. You can share your content from one central location and push this to any other page within your tenant. Besides the fact that SXA is cloud ready, it also includes headless capabilities. It contains a JSON Data Modeling tool in which you can compose your own JSON using the standard Sitecore Experience Editor. This allows you to add personalization and testing to the JSON that you are composing. And next to the JSON Data Modeling tool, it is also possible to use your existing pages and render those as JSON. The SXA Layout Server returns all the presentation components, including their data sources, as JSON. So before we continue, I think it's important to lay out some SXA specific concepts that you'll be hearing during this video. First of all, we have our components, aka our renderings, the purple blocks in this slide. You can construct your pages by dragging and dropping standard components directly where you need them. These components are called renderings, and they are listed in the toolbox in the Experience Editor. There are renderings available for simple text, images, videos, social media plugins, as well as lists and search elements. Then we have our rendering variants, the blue rectangles in this slide. Rendering variants are configurable adaptations of the default renderings. To further encourage reusability, designers and front-end developers can also create new rendering variants. It gives authors more options in the way they can present their content. Rendering variants simply visualizes the content in a different way. They could also add some limited functionality. Then we have our partial designs. Partial designs are a set of selected renderings. You can use these to create the common design elements of your page, which you can easily reuse throughout your whole website. Think of things like headers and footers that need a consistent look and feel. Lastly, we have page designs, and a page design in SXA is a selection of partial designs that help you to structure your pages. So for example, you can make sure the headers and footers are always in the same place. You could also set up a page structure for specific pages, such as a blog page, an article page, a landing page, a product page, and so on. So how is this different than normal Sitecore? Well, in SXA we treat presentation as a first-class citizen. This means that we are treating presentation as our content, allowing you to leverage all the functionality that content has. You can think of things like versioning, workflow, and publishing. During Sitecore Symposium 2016, we introduced SXA to the world, and ever since we've been on a journey with you. Your feedback has been fundamental to all the improvement the product team has made over the past year. In fact, SXA is the only Sitecore product that is on a quarterly release cadence. You can count on us that we release a new version every 3 months. We have our own roadmap of features that we want to implement, but we're always looking for your feedback. You might have seen that a lot of product developers are active on social channels like Slack and Stack Overflow. And after all, we are building this tool so that you can do your work more efficiently. Over the past year, we've been adding a lot of improvements to SXA. Just to name a few, in December 2016, we have added support for Azure Web Apps, together with improvements for Creative Exchange like support for customization using pipelines and a provider model for storage. The following year in April, we added the JSON Data Modeling tool, allowing you to create JSON using the Sitecore Experience Editor. Also, we abstracted the grid system to a grid framework, allowing you to leverage this framework to implement your custom grid. In addition, we added an upgrade tool that you can use to easily upgrade your existing SXA implementation to a new SXA version. This tool takes care of your existing content architecture and migrates it to the new version and adds the new functionality that comes with the new version. Last summer, we made a major improvement to Creative Exchange. We implemented Creative Exchange Live, a feature that allows live editing of your theme by using any third-party tool available. Creative Exchange Live uses gulp tasks to synchronize your local changes to your SXA implementation immediately. This allows front-end developers to work closely together with SXA without needing to have any Sitecore knowledge. During that same release, we also added a tool to help you manage all the hostnames for your website. This tool identifies if there are any issues with sites that cannot be accessed by your visitors and helps you resolve these conflicts. We also implemented the SXA Layout service. This service allows to serialize your existing presentation settings, including the data sources, to a JSON feed. You can query your pages to only render a certain area, or you could render the whole page in JSON. This includes any personalization rules that are being applied on that page. And at the end of last year, we released version 1.5. The main theme for this release was sharing. It introduced a standard way of sharing your content and presentation across your tenant. You can now push content from one central repository to any of your sites in a tenant. Any content updates will automatically be reflected on all the pages where it is used. Besides the sharing of content, it is now also possible to share presentation, data sources, and rendering variants from a chosen site to any of the other sites in a tenant. One of the things that have matured over the past year is Creative Exchange. The initial release featured basic zip, export and import functionality, exporting your zip, unpack it locally, change the HTML or CSS, and unzip it once completed and import it back using Creative Exchange Import. What we have implemented last year is the live mode. By using gulp, we have the ability to connect with your Sitecore instance and will synchronize all local changes with SXA. This means the front-end developers can now use their own tools and platform to edit the look and feel of the website without the need to have Sitecore locally on their machine. One of the main architectural benefits of Sitecore has always been the separation of content and presentation, meaning that you put your content into the system once and you could reuse it everywhere on your websites. How the content was visualized, that was all part of the presentation layer. In SXA, we're treating presentation as a first-class citizen. We're basically treating presentation the same way as content, so it can be part of workflow approval and you can preview and publish your site's presentation. Since we still have this separation of content and presentation, we decided to create a data modeling tool in version 1.4, which enables you to create your own JSON. You can use the Sitecore Experience Manager to compose your JSON the same way as you would create a page. You can drag and drop components on a page, personalize them, and assign data sources. By using the SXA rendering variants, you can choose exactly which fields and how you want to expose them to the outside. It is even possible to personalize on a field level within the rendering variant. It lets you create JSON feeds using personalized data coming from Sitecore to be used in any other application. Another approach to generate JSON is something called the layout service. This service serializes the full part or parts of a page to JSON. Every component on the page will be serialized to JSON. You can even add filters to your REST call to narrow down the results. In fact, we are using the exact same service as the Sitecore JavaScript services uses. Let me quickly show you how these two options work. Let's switch to our demo site. For this demo, I'll be using the SXA Showcase website, which is a website that describes the functionality that SXA has to offer you. If you have a look at the navigation, you'll notice Features, which lists all the features that SXA offers. So let's take Creative Exchange for example. This page introduces you to Creative Exchange. It tells you how the process works, what it can do for you on and offline, and how you could import. Let's have a look at all the components. While we hover over components, you'll see that our menu changed, and we see all of our components categorized by the section in which they are displayed in the toolbox. So let's click on Promo. In here, on this page, you'll see also some examples of promos. You'll see some basic promos, but also more advanced with using an image as a background, use promo with tables, promo with a video, and promo with tabs. We also have some example pages in here and an example search. So let's search for some fruits. And in here you see a search, quite an advanced search, based all on SXA standard components. So we could change views, we could apply a different order, and obviously we could also filter. Now let's say that one of our requirements is that we need to have a list of all the features, but we need to have that list in JSON. How can we do that? Well, there are actually two ways within SXA to create JSON. Let me show you the first one. We'll go back to Sitecore, we'll log in, open up the content editor, and in here you'll see all the SXA sites I have running in this installation. We'll go to our features page, and we'll open this features page in the Experience Editor. Well, now it opens up in our normal view in our desktop mode. Let's switch our device from default and switch to JSON. Now the Experience Editor reloads and you'll see only a placeholder. You might have also noticed that the toolbox has changed. Instead of our usual components, we now only have 4 components on this page, which we can apply on this page. So let's apply a JSON list. Drag and drop it onto the placeholder, and we can select a rendering variant. We'll save it so it formats a bit better. And now you see a list of all the features we have, but then in JSON. This is what we needed. So how does this work? Well, this is just a typical SXA component and it uses a rendering variant to display the values. If you go back into the content editor and we'll open up our presentation and rendering variants node, you can see we have our JSON list component here. For now it just uses the default rendering variant. What we could do, we could add an extra field to it. So let's just use a JSON text field. We'll leave the name as it is right now and just say hello and world. We'll save it. And if we reload the features page, you'll see that we have an extra field. It says hello world, just as we put down there. So as you can see, if you hit the insert, there are quite some fields which you can enter here. You could add here. You could display different values like rich text, like date fields, your image fields, all kinds of fields available for the data which is in Sitecore. You could also add a JSON placeholder, which just adds a Sitecore placeholder to your JSON. That way you could even nest components. Another option we have is we can apply personalization rules. So you could edit your rule and you could say my predefined rule is true, or choose from one of the other rules available and only show this particular field when this rule is being applied, when the rule is being met, the condition. So that's one way of showing your data as JSON. Let's remove this list and show you the other option. We log out of Sitecore. We go back to our page, to our features page that is. And now we want to have this output again as JSON. Well, we don't want to use the data modeling tool for it. So what can we apply here? SXA now comes with the SXA layout service. This service serializes your presentation settings and outputs it as JSON. It is actually the same service that is being used with the Sitecore JavaScript framework. The Sitecore JavaScript services, that is. So what we could do, we in the query string add the parameter SA_device is JSON. Sitecore now retrieves the information from our JSON device. When it notices that the JSON device doesn't have any presentation settings, it by default uses the SXA layout service to render all of your data. So now we have all of our features, but then listed as JSON. We could also have a look at how the homepage would look like. So again, our homepage does not have any JSON data modeling presentation settings, so it defaults back to our SXA layout service. The SXA layout service gets the presentation settings from our default device and renders this as JSON. So now you can see all the components we have applied on this homepage. And as you can see, there are quite a few. So let's say we want to narrow down our results. So for example, we only want to have our navigation. So we want to have all of the information based on this in this path. Well, we can do that. We can add an extra parameter, SA_filter_path equals and our path. And we now only get the information which is available in this path. So what does this path mean? Well, this is the path to your Sitecore placeholder. Everything which is in this Sitecore placeholder is now being rendered as JSON. So you'll see all of our navigation in here. And so on, and so on. So now SXA has two ways of generating your JSON. One is using the data modeling tool, which you can customize your own JSON output. And the other one is to use the SXA layout service. In that, you can add some extra filters to it to narrow down your results. When we shipped version 1.0 of SXA, the only available grid system was a responsive version of the 960 grid system. In the past year, we extracted the grid system itself and created a way for you to bring any framework into SXA. By default, we now ship with 3 frameworks, and each of those frameworks have a specific feature set. So for example, using the Bootstrap grid system, we can define the width of the columns and whether components should show or hide on smaller resolutions. Now, if the market demands or you have an in-house favorite grid that we don't support, you can do a sort of bring your own grid. One of the things that was pretty high on the list of feature requests was a standard way of sharing content. In SXA 1.5, we even took it a bit further. In addition to implementing a standard functionality for sharing content, we also made sure you could share your presentation elements. There are in fact 2 ways of sharing content across the site now, cloning and using data sources. The big difference between those two is that with cloning you are essentially duplicating content. All changes are getting pushed to the cloned item. As with using the data source option, you are referring to content that is already stored in Sitecore. you are simply making a reference to that content. And that is actually the same concept that is being applied when it comes to shared presentation. You can now reuse page designs, partial designs, the rendering variants, and even styles or the whole theme. This is extremely helpful when you have multiple sites that all share the same look and feel. You can manage all the presentation in one place, and whenever changes need to happen, there is no need to go through all the other websites. Setting up your shared data sources is extremely easy. On a tenant level, you can select which sites are allowed to share the content and presentation. Now, whenever you are in another site, that site is aware of the fact that it can use content from other websites. It will give you the option of using content from its own repository or from the shared sites. If you would want physical items in your tree instead of using reference data, you can clone items. You can go to the source item in the content editor. Now click the clone button in the configure tab in the ribbon, and it will ask you where you want to create the new item. Select the path in which you want to store the delegated area, and SXA will handle all the change propagation for you. You are essentially delegating the control over part of your website to one central location. Let me show you how you can use all of this new functionality. This is the website of the Acme Corporation. As you can see, it's a website listing some products. It has some general information on the home page. We have a blog with certain blog posts. We have products, all with product pages. And now, one of the product departments decided that they want to have their own website. They want to create a website solely for the jet bikes. So, how is this set up in Sitecore? Let's find out. We log into Sitecore. And when we open up the content editor, we can see the tenant here, the Acme Corporation. We have our global website, the website we just visited, our homepage, the blog, some generic information, and all the products which are listed here. Well, the Jets department decided to create their own website. So they have the website right here. And let's open up this page in the Experience Editor. As you can see, they started to create their own website, and with that in mind, they thought it wouldn't take that much of a time. Well, they were wrong. They only created information which is applicable to their situation, so only information on the jet bikes. They added this nice hero here, but further than that, they don't have anything. So, what do they want to do right now? Well, they want to reuse components of our global website. So how can we achieve that in SXA? Well, let's go back to the content editor. If we go to a tenant level, to the Acme Corporation, we now have the ability to mark sites as shared. So what does that mean? Well, let's find out. Let's mark the global site as shared. We'll save it. And now if you go back to the Jets website, to our homepage, open this in the Experience Editor, and you can see, if we go to the Experience Accelerator ribbon, that under, for example, page designs, we now have an extra entry here. We have a global, which means that we can reuse these page designs from our global site. So with the brand article, brand default, brand home, brand page, and brand product page designs. The same goes for partial designs. We also have access to their partial designs right now. Even more, when we go to our slide component, let me see if we can remove this one. There we are. If you now look into the component properties where we can set data sources and we click browse, you can see that this dialog has an extra tree in here. So we have access to our global tree where the carousels are listed for the global website. So we can reuse even the content from our website. So let's start and change the home page that Jets have created. So open up the ribbon. We'll say we want to choose the site page designs. And now instead of our home page design, the one the Jets department created themselves, we're going to reuse the brand home design. Same goes for the brand page and the brand product. Click OK. We'll save our changes and the page is reloading. And now, once the page is reloaded, you can see that we are using the header which the Acme Corporation uses on their global website, but it uses our content. So what we are doing, we are reusing the page design and therefore the partial designs, but only filling it with our content. So the content on the page hasn't really changed. We still have our bikes, we still have our hero image. The only thing here now available is our corporation header, our global header and our global footer. So the Jets department also want to have the corporate blog on their website, but they don't want to maintain it. They just want to make it available for people to see and to read, but they don't want to do any other efforts other than displaying it. So how can we achieve that? Well, let's go back to the content editor, go to our Acme Corp global website, we open up the home item, and there we have our blog. Well, let's clone this blog. Let's go configure, clone, and select the destination for our clone. So we don't want to show it on the global side, but we want to show it on the Jet side. The home item should be its parent, so it should fall underneath here next to technology. We'll clone the item. And now we have a new dialog window here. It asks us, do you want to make this clone and its children an SXA delegated area? So what is a delegated area? A delegated area in SXA means that there's a certain part of your website in which the content is being delegated from one central location. In this case, our global website. So yes, we do want to do that. Click yes. And now you can see we have our blog listed under the Jets website. So for those of you who know Sitecore itself, the Sitecore platform itself, and they know cloning, in the old ways, in your default Sitecore way, whenever you create a new item, a new cloned item, or an item underneath the clone, all the changes are not being automatically propagated to your cloned items, meaning that you need to go to your Jets department and accept all the changes that are being made there. Well, let's find out. Let's insert a new page. Let's say this is a test page. And now you can see that automatically the test page is also being created on the Jets homepage, on the Jets website. Sorry. The content editor also shows you a content editor warning. This item is in a delegated area, meaning do not touch this. If you change anything, the delegated area will be removed and it will be a single content item. So let's go to our test page and let's edit some content. Let's say this is an example. Accept. Save our changes. And we go back to our cloned item. And you see that the text here has been updated as well. Now, if you go back to our website, let's reload this website. And you can see that our blog is here listed in the navigation. And even our test page is here. In the latest version of SXA, version 1.6, we made improvements and added some new functionality around components. We have made sure that your composite components can now be edited using the Experience Editor. We're also allowing the row and the column splitter to change the ordering of the rows or the columns. We also introduced a new functionality called a snippet. The snippet rendering lets you create a reusable group of renderings. It is a composite rendering It consists of several renderings that can be designed separately in the Experience Editor. In the same way as with partial designs, you can group different kinds of renderings and reuse these groups in different locations. The difference between a snippet and a partial design is that snippets are extensible. You can change the styling and you can use them as often on the page as you want. So for example, you can use the snippet rendering that contains rich text and 3 promos because you want to be able to reuse the structure and the promo text. You could have any number of those snippets on the page. You are able to change those promos regularly. Let's have a quick look at the snippets component. In the toolbox under composites, you can find the new feature here. We'll add a snippet to a page and we'll say that you want to create a new data source item, a new snippet item, and we'll just call it my snippet for now. Hit OK, select the item we created, and that is now being used as our data source item. So we'll save it, and once the page has reloaded, you'll see that nothing really changed here. You'll still see a placeholder, but when we click the placeholder, you'll see that it has a different name, namely section content 1-1. Well, that is because it's part of our component. It's part of our snippet component now. What can we do right now? Right now we can add promos to this placeholder. So for example, we'll use this promo. I'll use a customer case I have here. And I'll add another one. And yet again, another one. So now we have our 3 promos in here. I just want to set the width because this is not how it's supposed to look. So I want to set the width to a 4 column width. And I'll repeat that for the other ones as well. As a matter of fact, I could have done this a bit more smarter by dragging and dropping the components in front of the existing component, then it will automatically inherit all the properties that component has. But for now this works. So let's add a rich text to this. And we'll add it to our snippet. And we want to set the width of our rich text to a 12 column. And we will just name it customer cases. So we save our item. And now if you go into the content editor, you'll see that when I reload the data structure, that we have a snippet over here. And this snippet contains the text, since the text is stored within the snippet itself, and the other components are just referencing existing content. So what I could do right now is I could go to a different page. So for example, when I open up my home page, once my home page is loaded, I could drag the snippet onto the home page, and I can use this component, the snippet, once again. And now it will show me the exact same situation as it was on the other side, other page. So now you can see you can group your components together, save them as a snippet, and reuse those snippets one or multiple times on any of the pages within your website, saving you a big amount of time. We also made some changes to how SXA uses data sources in version 1.6. The Select the Associated Content dialog window has gotten some new options. You can create your content items over there, you can create your folders, but you can also copy items. This allows for a better content structure management in your dialog window. It is also possible to select the virtual page item in your data source dialog, which allows you to set the current page as your data source. In addition, components can now have multiple templates be accepted as data sources. Another thing we changed is the auto-generated data sources. This is being used by renderings that automatically create data sources when they're being dropped on a page. Examples of these renderings are rich text, image and plain HTML renderings. You can now go to the settings of your website by opening the settings item. In there, go to the section editing, and there you can select one of the following four options. Auto-generate name and store item on the site data. So a new data source item is created with an auto-generated name, and it's stored under the location shared across the entire site. You can also choose to have the system auto-generate the name and store the item under the current page. Again, your new data source item is being created with the auto-generated name, but now it's stored under your current page. You could also ask the user for the name and just store the item under the site data folder. You could also ask the user for the name and store it under your current page. This allows you to maintain full control over your architecture while not losing the flexibility SXA offers. Next, we added the option to create a new component based on an existing one. So let's say you want to have a component like the promo component, but just styled differently. It is now possible to clone the original promo component. This creates copies of all required items for the component, like the rendering definition item, the rendering parameters template, the data source template, and branches. Once you've created your own component, it's also possible to add it to the SXA toolbox. Curious? Let's find out how this works. So let's say that on this page we want to add our own component. We don't want to use the existing component, which you can find in the toolbox over here. No, we want to create our own component so we can customize it a bit later on. So how can we do that? First of all, we need to add a new feature to SXA. We can do that using the content editor. All features are stored in the system node under settings, and here we have a folder called feature. If you have a look, then you can see all features which come with SXA out of the box. What we want to do right now is under feature we want to create a new folder, because the standard SXA toolbox sections are overridden with SXA updates. Therefore, it's recommended that you create a separate folder so that any upgrades won't interfere with your custom coding. So let's insert a custom folder. We'll just name it custom. Click OK. And then we click on the feature node and we right click insert a new feature. Now we get a dialog window which gives us the opportunity to add a new feature. So we need to give our feature our name. So we'll just say our custom promo, and we need to add it to a feature group. In the feature group we can just select the custom folder, and now we can select the areas for which the system needs to create folders for our component automatically. We'll just leave this on as it is right now. We can also choose whether we want to have this component being part of the scaffolding process for tenants and for sites. Meaning that whenever you set up a new tenant or a new site, you'll get a wizard which helps you through that process. In that wizard you can select all the features that should be available within that site or within that tenant. Now with SXA 1.6 it's also possible to add features afterwards. So once your site or your tenant has been set up, you could still add features that have been added later on. So for now we'll just leave it as default and we'll proceed. Well, the feature creation process is done. Let's close. And now we can see that under our custom folder we have our custom promo, we have a custom promo site setup route, and we have a tenant setup route. So in here you could make additional steps that will be taken once the whole scaffolding process starts. Now that our feature has been created, we should copy the existing rendering that's being used for the promo component. We go to the layout folder, into the renderings, feature, and there we can find the promo rendering under the Experience Accelerator promo. We right click on this item and we go to scripts and say clone rendering. Now a new dialog window will appear and we can give it a new name. So for now, we'll just say our custom promo, and we can add it to an existing feature. So by default, it refers to the one which the origin is part of, but we don't want that. We don't want to have it in our custom promo folder here. We could add a new rendering class. We could use the existing CSS class. For now, I'll just say our custom promo. We could add some additional stuff. So we can select whether we want to use the existing rendering parameters or we want to make a copy. The same goes for data sources. We also want to make a copy, so we can also always extend the data source. And what we want to do with the MVC view. Do we want to use original view, use of the standard promo, or do we want to copy it, or do we want to select an existing MVC view? For now, we'll just copy it and we'll rename it to our custom promo. We'll proceed, and now the process of cloning the rendering starts. This could take some time. Well, it's rather fast. And now our custom component has been created. So to verify, if we go to the feature folder in our custom folder, we go to our custom promo, and here we see that our rendering has been created. If we have a look at our feature, then you'll see that it all has some customized fields. So we're using our own parameters template, we have our own data source locations, our own data source templates in here, and we are using our own rendering view, even with our own CSS class. So there are no real dependencies on the original promo component anymore. It's just a separate component now. So we created our component, but now we want to add it to our website. Well, as said, if we go and have a look at our website, and we can now right click on our site itself, we can go to scripts and we can select the add site feature. So right now it indexes which feature is available on the website. It should have all features but the one we just created. Well, yeah, you see our custom promo is here, and we can now add this feature to our corporate site. So click OK. The script starting all the site scaffolding steps, which are all defined in the feature itself. So let's wait until this has finished. Then we should have our component available in our toolbox as well. Well, the feature has been added to our website. Let's close this. And we'll just test right away if our feature is now available in our toolbox itself. So reload our page. And if we have a look at the toolbox on the right side, we now see our custom promo in here, and we can drag and drop our custom promo until the page. So, and lastly, we also made some improvements to our rendering variants. So for instance, the gallery component now supports rendering variants. Image fields which are rendered in variant attributes are now rendered as meter URLs. And it's also possible to use your own properties from your own models within your rendering variants.
Thank you for watching this session about SXA. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me by email mva@sitecore.net or any of the social channels.